Welcome back to Gold's Garage. So one of the trickiest parts of assembling an engine is installing the piston rings on the piston and then getting that piston into the cylinder properly in the right order and not do any damage to it. And so I'm going to start by fessing up. I broke a piston ring, and it isn't the first one. And I did a little quick math out of the top, talking only about the top and second ring now. The bottom rings are pretty hard to break. I mean, I don't know how you could break one, but I guess you could. Top and second rings aren't hard to break. So out of the last 1,000 top and second rings I've installed, I broke 2. So, and by the way, Mike Kimball's watching this. This is the first he knows about this. This is Mike's engine. Don't worry, Mike, I got it covered. So I'm going to go through how not to do that today, because the issue was, in this case, if I had a ring compressor like this, I have a bunch of them, and between me and my buddy Tom, we have almost got the field covered, but I didn't have a 4080, which is the piston size in this engine, so I elected to use my universal ring compressor. And before I forget, we're also going to update you on what's going on with David Bougie's engine. That's what we started with right there, the 350 small block. We have now purchased a brand new Blueprint engines 427 complete dressed engine. We're going to disassemble it and reassemble it in Blueprint. So if you want to know what's inside of one, stick with us. That's coming up. So anyway, digressing, I'm sorry. So this is a universal ring compressor. It's a pretty good one, and if you're careful, you will not break a ring. But if you're not careful, like I was, and this one, you might. And so we're going to show you how to use this one. I'm going to install the piston using this ring compressor because I still don't have one. My choices were, going back to what I was talking about, for the price of, I had to buy a whole complete set of rings. In this case, sometimes you can buy a set for one piston. In this case, logistics, I had to buy a complete set. So for what I paid for a complete set of rings, I could have bought one of these guys. So retrospectively, I wish I would have done that. So, so today we're going to show you, first of all, why do rings break? Rings are made, top and second rings, compression rings. The top is a compression ring. The second one's called a compression. It's really as much of an oil ring. They're made out of cast iron. Cast iron has over 3% carbon in it. That makes it very brittle. Steel, for example, a 4340 connecting rod has 0.4% carbon in it. This has 3%. A lot more carbon, and that's what makes them brittle. It makes them strong, but it makes them brittle as well. So, and this is operator error. It's on me, and I'll show you how not to do that in this video. So, first of all, I had to buy another set of rings, as I said. So I've installed the second ring into the piston. And Mike, Alec wants to come around here. I'll show you. And this is pretty standard. We talked about it before. So this is a 20 thousandths gap, and you can see I can easily fit that in there. So these rings, the top ring I've already done. Now, my standard practice is once I check all the end gaps, I'll leave the rings in the piston in the order that they're going to go, in the cylinder I mean, in the order that they're going to go on the piston, and then the assembly is simple. Take out the second ring, put it on first, etc. So a bit about the rings. This is a standard 5/64 top, 5/64 second ring, which is pretty standard for OEMs and most applications. Now, there are thinner rings going down to 1 millimeter, which is 0.39, less 0.7 of a millimeter, even smaller than that. And there are advantages, and the main advantage is a reduction in drag, reduction in friction horsepower loss. And when I get the last piston in, I'm going to check the torque to turn on this engine and see what we have. Typically, for most engines with 5/64 ring package, we'll have about 30 foot-pounds of torque it takes to rotate the rotating assembly. So we'll keep going here as much as we can. So first of all, we got to install the rings on the piston. So what I typically do, so you don't get mixed up, and if going back to my standard, read the instructions, and there is something unusual, not unusual, but hyperprotective pistons nowadays. The typical number for ring end gaps is 4 thou per inch, 4.5 thou per inch of ring end gaps for top and second compression rings. The specification for these is 6.5 thou, which means 25 thousandths of an inch. Why do they do that? In a hyperprotective piston in this design, they put the ring land a little higher in the compression in the piston. It gets it closer to the heat of compression, and therefore they're subject to more expansion. And they're very emphatic that you need 6.5, which gives you a ring end gap for the top ring only of about 25 thousandths of an inch. And there's a lot of school of thought out there. It's pretty common that the second ring should have more gap to allow any blow-by that gets by the first ring to get by the second ring. But if you follow the instructions, you're not going to have that. I have 25 thou on the top ring, and as you just saw, 20 thou on the second ring. So the next thing I do, so you don't get mixed up, orient the block the way the piston's going in, and mark all the pistons. So the top ring goes, this is the thrust side, the top ring goes, if the piston goes in the block like that, number 1 compression, number 2 compression. The expander goes in this area, somewhere in this area. The top ring that retains the expander is here, and the bottom one, and the top ring is here. So that's the way we're going to install it on the engine, on the piston, and then we're going to try and install the piston for you right now. So just get it just gently in the vise. Now the trick is I use ring expander like this. Let's put the bottom rings on first. So this, I just showed you the tabs for this ring always have to face up. And so, as I just mentioned, the main expander faces this way. So that's pretty easy. It's pretty safe to put in. You can't really go too far wrong. And then the bottom one for the expander goes here, and that shouldn't be much of a problem. There we go. And the top one for the expander goes, retaining ring for the expander goes here. So what does this ring do? This ring gathers up the oil and pushes it down into the middle of the cylinder, gets rid of it, so it prevents a lot of oil from getting to the second ring. So now the tricky part. So yeah, just took that. So that's the broken one. That's the new one. So as you noticed, on almost all cases, the second ring will have either a little dot or a little sign that says top. I mentioned this before. When you see these ones said top, the original ones, there they go, where it says top. It's not the top ring, it's the top of the second ring. So the trick in getting these rings, so I'll make sure I got the dot on the top. And where's it going to go? It's going to go over on this side, but it doesn't matter when I install it. The trick of getting it in, some guys put rings on without a tool, with their fingers. That's okay if it works for you. I don't. I think it's safer to do it this way. And so the trick is you want to get it into that ring land before, well, it's still expanded. So by putting some pressure with your finger from this side, okay, you will help your case to get it. And where am I? Here we go. Okay, so now this ring has to come. This is number 2, and you can see the dot is still there on the top. The next ring is the top compression ring. It's different. It does not have a top or bottom. It's a square section, so you can put that in either way. And as you can see, I filed a little bit on it to get that extra few thousandths. These are not file fit rings, but if you use a standard ring and you don't take a few more thousandths off, according to Keith Black, you're not going to have enough ring end gap. So that's typically what I do. So once again, by putting some pressure from this side, that helps to get it. And I lost it, see that already? I was showing you how to do it, but I didn't do it right, so. And now the ring is stuck in there. Yeah, not in the right place. There we go, finally. Okay, fumbled around a little bit. I let go of the expander too soon. And anyway, I got it in and no damage done. So the gap on number 1, top compression ring, faces this way. The gap on number 2 faces this way. And that's ideal. What if you don't do that? It's not the end of the world. The main thing you want to make sure is you don't have the gaps on your top and second compression rings lined up with each other, because that's going to make it easier for a blow by to get by, obviously. So that's really the point. So didn't quite get that second one the way I wanted to, but they're both in. Check to make sure they rotate freely. Okay, so they do. So we're good to go to put the expander on. The next thing I got to do is prepare my cylinder for it. So here's my old friend. Fantastic. I know not everybody does that. It's a last cleaner. It's a good grease cutter, and then I will oil the cylinder as well. So spray a little bit of Fantastic in there. Make sure that cylinder is squeaky clean. And I've already cleaned it before, so it's going to be okay. And before I start, I got to make sure the crankshaft is in the right location for receiving the ring, so receiving the piston. So if you look down there, I'll put this up. There we go. Looks like I got a little on the crankshaft. Okay, so I'm making Alec move around lots here. So the next thing is the ring, getting some oil in there. I got my oil can. Get oil in the cylinder. And then before I put the ring compressor on, I got to make sure that I have some lube on the bearing. Drop a nut. It's over here. I'll just stay there, Alec. Okay. Move on the bearing. This is the messy part, guys. So the ring expander, I'll show you what I did wrong when I broke a ring. The tricky part is when the ring compressor goes on, obviously the tapered part of the top faces this way. These little dents prevent it from going into the cylinder. So you bring it up like so, only I got to put some oil on the piston as well. So, and in the previous video I did show installing the spiral locks. These are full floating piston pins. So we got some oil in there, some oil on the rings. It's a messy part, and there's not much you can do, to avoid that. Then the ring compressor comes on, and here's what I did wrong the first time. So this ring is so big and sloppy before it's compressed that the ring actually caught the land like this. It wasn't in the groove. Right now it's in the groove okay. And when I tightened the compressor, it tightened against there. When I went to install it, that's what broke the ring. So this video is about what not to do as much as what to do. So if you're going to use a universal compressor, this is actually a pretty good tool, and if you're careful, you will not have a problem installing piston rings with it if you're careful. And this ring that I broke actually was the very first one. I hadn't used this tool for a long time. For the last many years I've been using one of my universal ones, and so I got caught. And then when you tighten down on your tool, the ring should all compress together. If they don't, then you got something. The ring was caught in the land. It didn't go in there right. So I think that's pretty close. You need it tight enough that the ring's not going to pop out, and you can't make it too tight or you're going to have a hard time getting it in. So we're getting close putting it in. Obviously the valve reliefs go on the top. So this is the piston that goes on the passenger side. So the radius on the crankshaft, we're going against the cheek of the crankshaft at the back, so that's where the radius has to be, and you can see that's where the radius on the connecting rod is, and you always have to make sure that you get that right as well. So let's see if we can get this guy in here without breaking anything. Get it nice and straight. Okay, moment of truth. We are in. So we're going to go ahead and line that up at the bottom, put the connecting rod on, and then do a torque to turn test. Where is that? You got to make sure that you guide it on. So I missed a step. So usually put these on the connecting rods, and under the pressure of the camera, I guess. So I forgot to do that. That's what I normally do, and you should do it too. The risk is when you're driving the piston in, if the bolt on the connecting rod is sticking out and hits your crankshaft, it's going to scratch it. So in this case, I'm not going to now, because I can get under here and actually guide it in place. It's in. So dodged the bullet at that time. So let's turn it over. And we'll put the cap on, we'll torque it, and then we'll check the put some lube on the cap as well.
Just put them on and show it.
Pardon?
Put the rubber on and just show it.
Yeah. So this is how that should have worked. Under pressure, I forgot that stuff. So when you're driving the piston in, if you have those there, they will guide it onto the rod, onto the connecting rod, or to the crankshaft, and make sure that you don't scratch anything. But I didn't anyway, but because I did guide it on. But so take my cap. Now in this case, you want to make sure this radius is on the same side, and your double check is one side of the rod has a number on it and the other side doesn't, and the numbers should also line up. So I'm putting the radius to the back because this side of the rod is at the back of the crankshaft. Right? There we go. Put some oil on the nuts. I have the oil cup here, but I haven't got it handy. And stay there, Alan. Got to, is that 9/16? One thing on. Snug that down, and torque wrench, the spec for this engine, Mopar, these are 3/8 rod bolts, is 45 foot-pounds. So let's go to 45 on the, there we go. And one little quick note, when you're tightening the connecting rod, better to do it in one nice swoop, because static friction in the bolt's more than moving friction. If you stop, it might take more friction to get going again, and therefore you might not get exactly accurate reading. So we'll try to go down on one step. There we go. There we go. That's all it needs. Now, check, check, check. Before the oil pan goes on, I will go through every connecting rod bearing, torque again, just to make sure that I got it right. So, turning it over, let's see how much torque it takes. And my lifter fell out from back when we were degreeing the cam. See how much torque it takes to turn it over. I got that under. Sorry guys, got this ready. So typically it takes about 30 foot-pounds of torque. So let's try it. Let's try it at 30. So if you don't torque it too hard, I can turn it at 30. Let's go down to 27. Okay, so it's there it is, stopping it, 27. So between 27 and 30 foot-pounds, which is typical for a 5/64 ring package. If you go to a 1 millimeter or 0.7 millimeter, that torque to turn will be less. The friction horsepower will be less, and your engine will make more power. But 5/64 rings are made for long life. 0.7 millimeter rings are made for racing engines that have short life. So think about that before you, if you're building a street engine. Talked about this before. The next size is a 1/16 ring package. That's not a bad thing to do. That's what I did with my son's race engine. It did take almost 10 foot-pounds out of the torque to turn. So it's worth doing, and it's a race engine, so it's different. Okay, so what have I called? Yeah, I didn't ask you to like and subscribe. We need you to do that, and you know what? The subscribers are going up nicely, and that's what keeps me and Alec and Mike digging here, trying to think of interesting videos. I mentioned before we have a 427 full dress blueprint 427 block purchased on the way here. It's being shipped right now as we speak for David Bougie's 68 Nova. And we're going to make some changes to that. And if you want to know what's inside of one of these guys, stick with us. We're going to totally disassemble it, measure every clearance, measure every specification on it, document it, and do some things to it that's going to make even more power. So let me take a quick check and see if I forgot anything. Yeah, I think I pretty much got it covered. I always like to make some notes so I don't forget something that's important. So what do we talk about? How to get the rings on the piston properly without damaging them or without breaking them. How to use, you can use this tool. This is one of the nicest universal expanders I've ever used, actually. And if I wasn't sloppy, I wouldn't have broke a ring. I just wasn't being careful enough. And that's on me. And, you know, pay your money, take your chances. That's how it works. Thanks for watching Gold's Garage. Hey, tip of the day. Here's Daryl Waters, Daryl's Dyno Service. He's my man. Daryl Waters has dyno more than 1,000 engines. I think he knows what he's doing. There's his new shirts he just got made. Pretty cool stuff. I meant to actually wear it in the previous video and I forgot to do that. So I thought I'd make it short and check it out. Daryl's on Facebook, and if you want to buy one, I'm sure he can sell one to you. Thanks for watching.